we're lost. Really lost.
Tis dangerous out there in space. Trust no one.
I'll get you home. We'll make a partnership.
You're a Jedi.
Okay, Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome to our Skeleton Crew review show. The adventure continues as we bring in our latest guests, Dave T and Dez T. How you doing, guys? All
Happy
good?
New Year!
Happy New Year, everyone.
Yeah, fantastic.
Good.
Doing good.
Right.
I'm sat here with my collection of caps as well. I just realised.
Oh, there you go. Check that out. Right. Now then, spoiler warning. If you haven't seen episodes 5 and 6, which we're talking about this evening, please make sure you do so before watching this, because we'll probably spoil it. But before we do take a look at episodes 5 and 6, Dave, tell us your thoughts on the series so far prior to these episodes that we're discussing tonight.
For those who don't know, I run a toy shop. And when you are in that sort of environment, particularly at this time of year with like Christmas, you get everyone's opinions on everything, whether or not if you've asked for them or not. You know, if you think of like your algorithm and the stuff that you're permanently like sort of like seeing again and again and again in an echo chamber, it's like that without no off switch. And you're selling the stuff as well. So I've had the Lego set in for ages, and that has not done well at all up until now. But the Black Series figures have sold well, and the Funko Pops have sold very well as well. And it's probably more to do with the Onyx Cinder, I think, is 120 quid in the Lego, and then everything else is you know either 13, 14 pounds or 25. Oh, and there's one vintage figure as well. And it's really nice for a change to hear an overwhelming positive reaction. And there's also a lot of people who said that they haven't even seen it yet. And it's like, well, you're in for a treat, because that hopefully means that you're going to enjoy it as much as everybody else is as well. So for me, it's really refreshing, because everything is normally quite divisive in terms of people's opinions, and honestly, I don't necessarily enjoy. I enjoy all Star Wars. I don't necessarily like all Star Wars, but I freely acknowledge that not everything's going to be for my catering to my tastes. So as someone who makes a living in a roundabout way based off the success of Star Wars, the fundamental thing is that there's got to be something out there, you know, to keep it going. And every now and then you get like a home run. You know, Andor for me has been some of the best Star Wars that's ever been done. But like again, within the realms of what I do, not everybody likes Andor. You know, some people found it too boring, too slow, and I'm kind of like, no, you got to see it. You know, it was only really that Mando season 1 with, you know, Baby Yoda being revealed that everybody went crazy. You didn't even really have it with the sequel trilogy films. So you have, you know, when you're getting it right, getting the right beats, and Skeleton Crew feels like it's getting it right, mainly because I think for the first time in a long time, it's actually full of humor. And I think that's been sorely lacking from a lot of the Disney era stuff. In terms of live action, I think they've always had it in the animated stuff. They you know, they introduced humor quite well in that sense, but it has been lacking in the live action stuff, because they kind of don't know how to do it. And by having the innocence of children, which when you think about Star Wars as a whole, there's not really, you know, you look at the original trilogy, there's no kids in it at all. There's like literally no children to be found anywhere throughout, like, you know, the original trilogy. Yeah, it's a film for kids, and we always think, oh, you know, and all this sort of stuff. It's not really until you get to like the prequels that you start then seeing young Anakin and the Padawans and stuff like that. But again, they were different to how this is being treated. You know, this is more relatable to us because we did silly things, we said stupid stuff and stuff like that. So there is the innocence there of making the mistakes, and as the story's progressing, you're seeing that each character have their strengths and their flaws as well. So I think it's great. And
Good.
And who doesn't love
excellent.
Neil? Because he's just the coolest ever.
Yeah. Des, how about you? Have you been enjoying the series?
Yeah. When you pointed to yourself then, Matt, and I thought, does that mean you don't like Neil?
No, I love Neil.
Oh, you do like? Okay.
Yeah, he's my favourite character.
Yeah. It's I'm enjoying it. Yeah, it's Star Wars, so I'm always going to enjoy it. Is it Star Wars? Maybe not Star Wars, but yeah, if you took Star Wars out of it, could it be something else? Yeah, possibly it could be.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm sort of really enjoying it. And like Dave said, the fact that there's children in it and they're the sort of stars, and they're messing about, they're having a pillow fight. It's like we've got to escape from this sort of burning building before we get captured again, and they're having a pillow fight, just messing about. And yeah, it's a bit silly, but I don't mind silly. That's silly in a good way.
So out of 10 then, prior to these episodes, what are your ratings so far, Dave?
Ratings out of 10. I would give it a solid 8 out of 10.
Good. Yeah, Des.
Yeah, I think a good 7.5, which is I think is a good a good score.
Yeah, definitely. I'd agree. Yeah, I think we're both around that ourselves, 7.5, 8. So yeah. So then, episode 5, you have a lot to learn about pirates. Let's have your thoughts on the episode. What did you like about it, and what didn't you like, Dave?
Episode 5. There were a lot of kind of like parallels that I really enjoyed in this. I mean, it's going into the pirates' lair, and the funniest bit about it was the fact that it's now like a holiday resort, and not like the kind of we're going into the trap at all of like imminent danger. It's like this pleasure beach kind of environment, and it's like the mud baths. And as the story progressed with that, it made me kind of chuckle, because it both episode 5 and when we go on to like 6, they were like almost like Miyazaki elements that I felt like were coming in, because episode 5 felt like it was Spirited Away with like the bathhouses, and they're going down, and then they find the big creature that then helps them. There's oh no, they're in trouble, but the big creature helps them out. And then in episode 6, it felt like Howl's Moving Castle at one particular element. But and the foreshadowing of when the onyx cinder like lands, and there's bits falling off it. That it's decrepit, and they're kind of like, we're gonna have to get cleanup crew up here and stuff like that. But no, I really enjoyed it. I like the idea, because the other thing as well is a lot of the life goes on outside of civil war, and life goes on in all of these kind of things. So like you are going to have like at end, you are going to have like suburban people, like people just working away, and you are going to have like well, this is like a spa retreat, it's like for the baths. And the fact that it had like the banking clan there, you had like the things that you could kind of, if you're like deep into Star Wars, that you can take away, and it's like, oh look, there's all these various bits and pieces, and then you get into the pirate side of things, and then all the booby traps that you'd expect and stuff like that. So I really enjoy it. There was a lot of comedy elements in there, like when they split up, and the guards caught up with Jod, and they're calling him whatever, his professor whatever, and then he's like, rather than try and like explain, he's just like, run, like this. And you had and where he's just trying to like sort of blag his way in, and then you find out he's had another pseudonym as well from like the bounty hunter, the Scottish bounty hunter. So like it's sort of like peeling another layer away of just like, oh my god, how much blagging has this guy done like throughout his whole life, living on the fringes in the way that he has. But yeah, I mean, the standouts moments were really when you got to the end of that episode, and it's like the pirates' horde, and then finding out what it is, the treasure of Atin, and then the moment with Wim, the anticlimax of that, and then he completely fumbles it. But I have like an insane theory, which we'll get to at some point from that particular episode, because I'm just like,
okay. Des, how about yourself?
Yeah. I say that there's still a lot of questions, which is good. With only, obviously, we're talking about episode 5, with episode 6, obviously still, but with only sort of 2 after sort of today's to go, there's still a lot of questions. I'm still not 100% sure about in itself, with regards. How much do the citizens know with the powers that be? Do they sort of know about the barrier and they know it's protecting them, but is it protecting them or is it keeping other people out? The location, all that sort of stuff. So that's still a bit sort of something to think about. Trying to read my own writing here. I thought it was when they found. What Dave was saying, when they found the recording eventually, which I thought was good. Lots of Indiana Jones and Harry Potter, I thought, sort of vibes about bits and bobs, which is great. Easter eggs for those that know, or maybe I'm just got literally the wrong end of the stick. But I thought it was interesting. Again, trying to grasp names, because I'm saying that quick and you're not sort of sure who they're talking about or how they pronounced it. But Tack Reynolds, the old pirate captain, I thought it was interesting. You couldn't see his face or what race he was. I don't know whether that's significant.
Yeah,
it's got to be, isn't it?
It's got to be sort of something. Lots of comedy things, like Dave was saying. I just thought, I've written down here, when they've got SM33 tied down with his ropes. And you think, no, they've caught him, and then he's just, and he's out, just like that, I thought that was just funny moments, that make you laugh, The Jude Law character, again, insert which name you want to use for him. Force powers, they are, it's almost confirmed he's got force powers now.
Yeah.
Are you still not convinced, Martin?
Martin's not convinced, no.
No, I think he's got a robotic hand, and he's got some sort of magnet device, because I can't think of any other force powers he's shown other than
lifting and pushing,
bringing something to his hand. Off the top of my head anyway, I can't think of anything. I'm just not convinced he's got force powers, but we'll see.
That's interesting.
But I thought it was a good episode.
Yeah. Enjoy it yourself, Martin?
Chloe's always saying he's wearing gloves as well.
Yeah.
Well, episode 5 for me, I think I loved it. And I'm with Dave. It was my favorite episode. My favorite episode thus far when I first saw it. I think after seeing episode 6 quickly, I think 5 and 6 could easily have been made one episode rather than 2. I think they could have made a nice 45-minute runtime rather than 28 minutes and 24 minutes. I think it was. I think that would have been more preferable. But there were some really standout moments for me. But everyone's talking about funny moments. I'm still laughing now when they're flying into the pleasure hotel, and he goes, "It goes by many names, the Demon's Rest, Battle World, La Luna." I was absolutely, I spat my tea out when he did that bit. I thought it was absolutely hilarious. The way that he had to kind of reel off the names. I think SM33, I wasn't too sure about him to start with, but he's actually quickly becoming one of my favorite characters. I thought, as Dave mentioned, the ignition of the lightsaber backwards was absolutely hilarious.
I was actually hoping for that to happen. I was willing that.
Yeah. I think I actually even said I think he's holding it upside down before he pressed the on button to step. but yeah, I mean, there were some great Easter eggs in there. There was the banking clan. There was, there was a hut in there, which was nice to see. The booby traps kind of reminded me, as Des said, of the Last Crusade. Sort of having to do the leap of faith. And the Goonies. There was a lot of Goonies type booby traps in there as well. But again, the meat of the episode, as Dave quite rightly said, was when they got to the vault at the end, and it turned really dark. I thought. All of a sudden, when we all knew it was going to happen, but when Dodd, whatever his name is,
Howard.
Thank you. He obviously turned and had the knife to her throat, and it's quite a dark thing to happen for such a light show so far. So
when he said, sorry, Martin, when he says fill the bath up with acid again, basically, kill them all,
kill them all,
and all you hear is
just showing his ruthless side.
It was a great. I really, really enjoyed the episode. I thought it kind of had the first half was sort of comedy, move the story on slightly, and then the second half of that episode was right. We're getting to some meat now and start explaining a few things, and which I think we all said in previous episodes we were kind of waiting for that to happen. So this episode really delivered for me. Episode 5,
absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm in agreement. One thing you didn't mention though, you said about the hut and the Mune. There was Rhodey in there, but you didn't mention the astromech droid.
I wrote it down as well. The first astromech droid.
The first astromech droid. Come on. Yeah, very much like the R5J2 from the Saga Collection line, if anyone's interested. But yeah. I was like, oh, that looks familiar. But that was one of the standout moments for myself. But no, the episode itself, yes, it was definitely up there. Probably the best of the series so far for me. Good pacing, lots of references, like you say, to Indiana Jones, Goonies, all of that good stuff. But really just interesting. One thing I did want to ask: does anyone have an idea of whose lightsaber that might be?
It definitely looked like the High Republic, didn't it? It had the gold on it. But one quick thing I did note about that lightsaber. Since Disney have taken over Star Wars, you must have all noticed how their lightsaber hilts have doubled in size compared to what they were like previous to them owning the company. This lightsaber hilt was actually the right size finally. So I was actually over the moon more than anything else that they'd actually got a lightsaber hilt correct. And I know that's sad, but I was happy because of that.
A child had to hold it, didn't they? So
yeah, true.
I would say with the lightsaber, do you think they'll make something of it, or is it just a generic lightsaber? Because like Dave said, if it's Old Republic, that's thousands of years old.
Yeah, I think he took it, didn't he? He picked it up and took it with him. But then when he got arrested or taken into custody by the pirates in episode 6, he didn't see it again. So he may well have hidden it on his person. Who knows? But we'll see. I think you're right. It's not High Republic. It's probably Old Republic, and because the High Republic was 1,000 years, and then the Old Republic was, 1,000 generations, as Obi-Wan put it before that. So
whatever it is, I want them batteries if they're still working after thousands of years.
Excellent.
Dave, did you say you had a theory that you wanted to put across, or?
Right. So I watched it for the second time last night. Normally how it works is I watch an episode, and then when it comes to the new episode, I'll watch the previous episode again the night before to just refresh and get back into it. And something occurred to me when watching it for the second time that I was like, ooh, and made me go back with to the start of the episode just to compare like for like. Now, Dez mentioned earlier that when you got to the end of that episode and you had the pirate king, I can't remember his name, but the recording was interrupted. His voice is very, very, very similar to the voice that we've already heard in the show. And that made me go back to the point in that episode where you hear that voice, and it's not the only time you hear it. And I'm first of all, I'm convinced it's the same voice actor that's doing it. But also at the same time, is it actually the same character that's doing the voice? And that is, when you go back to At-Atin, all of those droids, they all have the same voice, and they all pretty much are CCTV cameras on droid bodies. And when you hear the voice of the droid when he's like approaching Wim's dad, even though it's clipped and more polite, his accent is actually similar to the pirate captain. So where I mean, there's like theories abound of who the administrator is and things like that. What if the pirate captain is, you know, the administrator and running the thing? But like, I also actually think he's running all the droids, because the droids are by an extension. Now I know, but her mother switches off the droid and tells her to wipe the memory. But he says to Wim's dad, "What is in your hands? You know, show me your hands," like that. And the way he says hands is very, very, very specific. But the pirate hologram, he also says hands in exactly the same way as the droid does. And given that the droid looks like a CCTV camera, and the moment Wim's dad was doing something wrong, you know, the head popped up, you know, like that, like I've caught you. Just as each time that anybody's done anything wrong on At-Atin, like when the speeder bikes go by, you know, the cameras are like, you know, on them, or when like Wim's out in the woods and like the droids caught him, and when Wim's dad's out in the woods, you know, the droids caught him, you know, they're almost like walking security cameras. But the way he says hands, and it's in that episode, I reckon that either that I mean, Chloe seems to think that SM-33 is actually the pirate captain. She thinks it's him. And he's kind of like almost like a Darth Revan. He can't remember his memories and stuff like that. And he is, you know, it turns out he is the actual captain and stuff like that. But I think that the administrator on the planet is the captain, and he's living his best life. But like his droids and the way he's exerting the control for the greater good is that he, you know, it's the same voice. Now, interestingly, went to the credits, and you get to the other, you know, voice talents, and you got people in there that you'd recognize being part of Skywalker Sounds, so like Matthew Wood, David Collins, you got Sam Witwer in there, but you've also got Robin Atkin Downes. Now he is a British guy, and he does a lot of, you know, he's a lot of animation stuff. He's done like Transformers, for example, but he's actually previously been in Star Wars video games. So the third Rogue Squadron game, which came out on the GameCube, Rebel Strike, he was Sarkley, who was a rebel who then, GameCube, sorry, he was the rebel who then turned out to be a traitor. So he's been involved in Star Wars projects, but I'm pretty much certain that's his voice that's doing both the droid and also the pirate captain. Now, it could be complete coincidence that it's not at all, but certainly the way he says hands, and if you go back to that episode, and they both say it in both, he's just like, holy shit, it's the same. It's definitely the same voice actor, I reckon, and it could be like foreshadowing that it's his. You know, the pirate captain is now the administrator, or his conscience is part of the droids or something like that. But like that's my wild, crazy theory.
Yeah,
because they're looking CCTV cameras. You know, there's no other reason for that droid looking that way.
No.
Yeah, interesting. Dez, what do you think of that theory? What do you make of that?
It's a well put together theory. I'm going to say conspiracy then, but theory. yeah, totally agree with the whole CCTV
Yeah.
sort of camera. Yeah, that is, and it I wouldn't have thought that Star Wars need to sort of double up on actors or voice actors to sort of keep the costs down. So it could be 2 episodes to go. We'll see.
Yeah.
But a well thought out idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Well, let's
Yeah,
give
I think
our
coming at it from like Big Brother's watching you kind of thing.
Yeah, and they are on him straight away when he's doing the hacking of the system.
Well, let's give our ratings then for episode 5. Dave.
I'm going to give that a 9.
Oh, a 9, big. Yeah. Dez.
Yeah, I think a good 8.5.
Yeah. Martyn.
Yeah, I'm going to go 8.5 because it's been my favourite episode so far.
Yeah, as I said, my favourite so far, also 8.5. So yeah, that's well, an overwhelming, show of that.
Yeah, you do the maths.
Yeah, yeah, I won't. Moving on to episode 6. Then it was called Zero Friends again. How do you feel this episode went, Dave?
So this was giving KB some much needed screen time. I felt, because everyone's had their moment in the sun. Neil was in sort of like episode 4. You've had like the back and forth with Fern and like Wim and stuff like that, but KB's kind of always been the sort of the voice of reason in the background, and you had foreshadowing of that she was running into trouble in episode 5. I think it was in the 2nd or 3rd episode. Her mother's said, we're not picking up our life monitor and all this sort of stuff, so you knew something was she was different to the other kids. But it was a classic divide and conquer story in the sense of that everybody's kind of gone their separate ways. The band split up, but they find that they do need each other and they got to get back together and stuff like that. But there's great concepts. So given that they escaped through the chutes, there was no spiked pit at the bottom of that. It was just like the coolest ride on the planet. That just comes out of the junk heap. You got the trash crabs, which I think were hilarious. And then that's where I was like saying, the big mother trash crab just reminded me of like Howl's Moving Castle, which I thought was a nice, cool concept there. And then Jod being caught by the pirates straight away, but he's almost like Mr. T with all like the gold everywhere. And that was funny, he's coming up and he's like making his excuses. But what made it even funny is then when you saw SM33 come up and he's completely like, with all like gold chains and everything as well. And rather than him kicking their asses before, they just shoot him straight away, and that's it. There was no kind of repeat of what you saw in episode 2. It literally like took that to another level. But where you had the Onyx Cinder falling off and stuff like that, when it got to the point of the junkyard, it was very much Toy Story 3 when they're all like going down into the incinerator because all the kids are looking at each other. It's looking very futile. And I was thinking it wasn't going to go the way I was expecting, because it's like what's going to happen, or are the X-wings going to come back in and stop the World Devastator or the trash monster and then things like that. But it was cool that it was like, so this is how the pirate ship, manages to get through. Nobody recognizes what the ship is because it's just covered in crap, and it's almost a bit like a bit of a Solo moment, that the Millennium Falcon that you see in Solo is off the factory line, but it's not the Millennium Falcon that we recognize because it had been beaten up and all the bits stripped out of it. This is almost kind of like the reverse of that. It was like going from like junk heap to like this sleek ship and stuff like that. Still doesn't kind of marry up a little bit on some of the other plot elements of like, we got fissures and leaks, and there were all roots in that ship when they first went in there. It was, things had, ingressed within it. But it's a cool idea that, and a literal phoenix rising from the flames of like a new ship. So it was a cool way to end it. Yeah, and then Jod's, trial with the pirates and the pirate code, and that was really well done, I felt, and quite funny, from the point of view of, everybody always wants more, and the grass is always greener, and if you come with me, I will give you what you want. But for Brutus, when he's like showing him like, get one go at this, and if you get it right in, when he's like just like squeezing his face against like the airlock and then pushing the button, I thought that was, it's just like you knew the way it was going to go in a true sort of like pirate Jack Sparrow kind of way, that it's going to win over the crew and things like that. But it was also a brilliant threat to like say, I'm done with you. If I can get my way, I'm gonna like end you. But yeah, it was a great episode. Great acting from all involved. Because like I said, it was introducing like a range of emotions and stuff like that. But it's great to see things, build on the strength of the acting, and everybody's very comfortable and things like that. But it was another great episode.
Agreed. Yeah. Des?
Yeah, well, some of the bullet points I say, I totally agree with what Dave's just said. I just thought the shortest episode, I'm a bit disappointed with that, because you want more. And like Martin said earlier, you could have almost put them together to create one bigger episode. But that's what it is. But yeah, bullet points, I put Jod coming out like Mr. T. I thought that was a good sort of, and then with SM33 coming out and then just getting blasted straight away. Well, there's no fight there. I thought that was a good sort of thing. X-wings just coming and going, blinking, you sort of miss them. I'm sure Hasbro will release an X-wing in a skeleton crew box. The kids splitting up, very reminiscent of R2 and 3PO in episode 4. So. And how they both helped each other out, with Wim helping the android girl, what do you call her? KB. Again, I'm still not up to date with the because they're not in VC. You see, they're all in Black Series. So I'm not going. The junk stroke scrap crabs. I thought they're very Harry Potterish, with the sort of small crabs leading them to the big sort of spider, if you like. Am I the only one? Do you think Jod is wearing Lando's shirt? It's just that blue sort of blousey sort of thing.
Yeah.
Whether that's a fashion thing,
no,
I
it
don't
definitely
know.
is.
Again, escaping the with like Dave said, I didn't even get the sort of Toy Story reference, but yeah, as soon as you said, I thought, yeah, I get that totally with the sort of all falling down into the pit. And then shedding the skin, I just thought that was, don't hit that button. Whatever you do, don't hit that button. You hit the button, and then it allows them to. I'd say I didn't see that coming at all. I thought that was a real nice sort of touch. It's like, how are they going to get out of this? Well, it's eating the sort of ship. So how can they escape?
Yeah,
it escapes because it's like I wouldn't say an escape vessel, but it's something very similar. With the two episodes to go, will they get back to Atin before the pirates? That's the sort of, again, we'll see that next Wednesday. And do you think there'll be a big battle if they do get back to the
yes.
Atin? It's got to be. You've got 2 episodes to go.
And I'll tell you why.
Go on then.
Because in episode 4, where you had the French speaking, what flag do you fly? There was a really kind of like up to this point, there was a really pointless thing that was in that episode where you just kind of like, well, that if you take that episode in isolation, makes no sense, but it will make sense in what is potentially to come, and that is when the young French girlie. I'm saying she's French, but she says to Neil, "I'll show you a bigger gun," and then she takes him to the rooftop, and then you've got this massive, great big flat cannon thing appear, but then does nothing for the rest of the episode. So they didn't fire the cannon.
Yeah.
The cannon had no purpose or use other than saying, this is what we use to defend ourselves.
Yeah.
But was such a sort of like odd thing to like thrown in, because it's like, well, that does nothing to progress the story other than if all of these planets are a clone of each other, in the sense of that, like, you knew that you were in a school and that's the administration building and that's the tower of knowledge and all this kind of stuff, that the same things have got to be supplanted into AT-AT in itself. So all of a sudden you're going to see the school transform itself into like this impregnable fortress, with like all these air defense things. So yeah, I think there will be, because even though it's like suburbia, I think there are things that have been built in to that. And then that's not to say what, my crazy theory of the pirate lord being the droids, with whatever he's put in as well. If he likes his booby traps in his pirate hordes, he might have seeded the place with a whole load of things as well.
Yeah. Martin, what were your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to say it now, and not many people will probably agree with me, but this is my favorite episode thus far. I thought it was a powerhouse performance by the four kids, because let's be honest, it's very difficult to find one or two kids that can act really well at their age, but they've managed to find four that do an absolutely amazing job. And this episode is kind of, I think it was directed by Bryce Dallas Howard, and they chose her purposely because they knew this was going to focus on the kids more. So she'd be a great director in order to bring that out of them. And I think the kids and her did an absolutely stellar job on this episode. I was really enjoying the interaction between the two, when they went off in two pairs. I thought it was great. And there was a magical little moment where KB called Win a Jedi, and the look on his face, when he thought, he'd done something to help somebody, and then she'd called him the Jedi. I loved that moment. I thought that was fantastic. I thought the beginning, that when they were sliding down the tubes, it was shot pretty much exactly like Luke was shot when he goes down the tubes on Bespin, as he's about to get thrown out underneath Cloud City. That was a massive callback for me. That was I definitely saw that. As Dez said, I've made a note that I thought R2 and 3PO splitting up was definitely it was definitely the same as the two kids sort of heading off their own ways, but then finally being reunited at the end. And funnily enough, kind of the Jawa sandcrawler with a load of junk in it kind of mirrored that slightly as well. Wasn't a huge fan of the hermit crabs, got to be honest. Did kind of feel it wasn't really Star Warsy enough for me. It was like, oh look, there's some crabs and they're carrying Star Wars items on there.
Could talk as well. That bit. I thought it was going to go somewhere else, but didn't.
Yeah. I thought the big what was the name of the huge monster that was on the top of that hill? I forget the name of the monster. It was like another crab type thing. It was another hermit crab, wasn't it? Really. Well, I read that was a stop motion puppet that they used to create
crab.
that. Mama crab, that was it. And Phil Tippett actually did that.
Okay.
And Phil Tippett, obviously Star Wars legend from the original trilogy. So his Tippett Studios did that. So I thought that was lovely that they brought him back to do that. I think he's done other things in Mandalorian. He did last season, but that was really great. I thought the music was excellent again this episode, absolutely sweeping again, really good soundtrack. And one other thing just quickly is, doesn't this show just look amazing? Every scene, whether it be back on the pirate base or out on the on the vistas of that snow world that they're on, everything looks absolutely cinematic. It doesn't look like a TV show at all. And I maintain the same thing I've said all the way through. For me, of all the TV shows we've had on Disney Plus so far, this one is probably the best looking we've had. So yeah, I don't really have many other things to say about this episode other than I absolutely loved it. It moves the story on. the only thing I would say perhaps is there's only 2 episodes left to fill in the blanks. So those next 2 episodes better be an hour long each. Otherwise, I'm going to be very angry.
Yeah. Well, I get a feeling you might be a little bit angry because there's as far as the episodes have been so far, there's no suggestion that these are going to be longer. But no, episode 6. Well, I'm interested to hear that you find this your favourite so far, because for me, I don't get me wrong, I didn't dislike it, but I felt it was a little bit slower. It did slow things down because they were moving the story along, I guess. But I did enjoy it, and I definitely agree that it's very cinematic. Saying about the slides that they all went down the tubes at the beginning, it just reminded me of Goonies, all the end bit in the Goonies, which, just a big callback to that. I know we always talk about the Goonies, and they talk about how they wanted it to be like Goonies, but they've absolutely nailed that. Cinematics, like you say, brilliant, and the score is very Goonies in places as well. So yeah, that's but I completely agree with you with the little hermit crabs. I wasn't a big fan of those as they were roaming around, to be honest.
I think this episode, what it did well was when you used to watch those films in the 80s where it was about a group of kids going on an adventure, there was always at that moment where they all had a falling out or there was conflict in the group, but there was always that scene just before the fourth reel of the movie where they'd all come together and they'd sort their differences out, and then they'd head to that final part of the adventure all united together. And I think that's what this episode was. So yeah, for me, I absolutely love this episode. I thought it was a real 80s throwback for me. And yeah, just the ship at the end as well, where it came out of its sort of cocoon, if you like, and it looked really sleek and really actually prequely, actually, in a way. It was very shiny, so I'm interested to learn a bit more about that. So yeah, hands down, I love this episode. It was great.
Yeah. Dave, is that ship hidden inside the Onyx Cinder in the Lego set? Do you know?
If they did do that, it would be a major plot spoiler.
Yeah.
They're very. The thing with that product is it was supposed to be out back in May of this year, and then they kept postponing it, and I think eventually it came out in August, so it was like way ahead of the show coming out, which is why I said it hasn't sold at all, because people don't know what it is. But yeah, there's no hint to that on the Lego set itself, but I guarantee that Lego will be on it to then do more stuff with it down the line.
Do we want to go into the ratings then on this one? I feel like we've expended our time a little bit. Dave, what do you have this down as?
I've got this down as a 9 as well. So the last 2 episodes have by far been my favorite episodes, just purely because of mixture of humor, story progression, the kind of Jod revealing his true colors, and then he's then trying to blag his way out of things. But in this episode, as Martyn said earlier, the performances of the kids themselves was probably the strongest it's been so far. So yeah, I'm giving this one a 9 as well.
Yeah, Dez?
Yeah, I think a good 8.5. Again, it's not a criticism. Just wanted to be a bit longer. You want more of it. It's a good episode. You want more, and also it just it didn't come to an abrupt end. It come to a sort of natural end, but you just wanted just a bit longer. That would have been good. But yeah, it's another good solid episode.
Martyn?
Yeah, I mean,
it's your favourite.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have to give it an 8.5 again. The same as episode 5. I'm not going to give it a 9 because I think for a 9 it has to be extra, special. And while I absolutely adore this series, I really, really have enjoyed it. I do take some of the criticism that some people would say you'd probably enjoy this as well if it didn't have Star Wars slapped on the front of it. I do get that, not as a criticism. I mean, it's not a criticism at all, but it's just an opinion. But I genuinely love this show, whether it has Star Wars on the label or not. So for what it is, I'm going to give it 9. Giving it a 9. I've changed my mind. It's getting a 9. It's getting a 9.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Well, with all of the episodes so far, I've actually managed to watch them twice, but with this one, I haven't. I've only
Good
seen
score.
this one once. So I'll just go. I'm just going to go with 7 out of 10 for this one, personally.
Wow.
But second viewing might change that. I don't know. But yeah. So what do we think's up next? 2 episodes left. Dave?
It's got to be the return to Atatin, hasn't it? Really, I mean, that's where we need
Straight
to go.
away?
I hope so. I think we need a setup episode to get to Atatin, and then the last finale will hopefully be the big battle if we have one. So,
You agree, Des?
Yeah, I think so. I think yes. It's sort of got to be that. There's got to be some sort of big battle between the residents of Atatin and the pirates. It's got to be a come together of forces, and then just see how it pans out. So
It'll be interesting to see how they deal with it, as they're not, a warlike planet. So yeah. Well, I think that is enough for this episode. Big thank you to Dave and Des for joining us. Thank you to everyone out there for watching. Please like and subscribe, and have a great 2025. We'll see you all soon.